Good afternoon, everyone. This is Miriam with Doulicious Nutrition, and I am here with Alleah Erica, and we are going to talk a little bit about the benefits of prenatal yoga and how to find inclusive spaces. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk a little bit more about her business and her practice, and we'll start our conversation.
Thank you so much. I am gratefully appreciative of you, Miriam, for just holding this space, because it is needed, especially with the high morbidity and mortality rate, just really trying to impact the overall good, positive gestational experience. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And so my name is Alleah Erica. I'm a Janet of all trades, and I'm a master of all of them because I'm very passionate about gestational experiences. 2011, I gained an angel, and she was the reason behind and motivation and still driving force behind my passion to support gestational bodies. And so I became a yoga teacher in 2013, became certified in both yoga and prenatal yoga as well as children's yoga. And then I furthered my education, became advanced trained in the yoga practice, and also became trained in Thai massage. My passion with working with gestational bodies, again, is to give them a better experience in the body and connecting themselves to their breath, body, and baby. And so when I studied in 2015, I realized I'm missing my clients from like 36 weeks to like 4 weeks, maybe 4 weeks after postpartum. And I was like, there's something in between that's missing. It's not really connecting. And so I went and became trained with birth arts. And then I also got trained in childbirth education. And so then I realized, I said, oh, there's such amazing things. And so with the combination of it all, I bring all of that to the yoga class. And so a few of my students were like, can you teach my husband how to do this? And I was just like, yeah, totally. And so that actually birthed the experience called the Partners Workshop, which basically teaches the partners to work with the gestational body as it grows. The motto and mission behind, I usually say the mantra behind the Partners Workshop is taking the learning curve out of the birth experience in the birth room, because that's not when we learn. We're in pain. We totally want to just be left alone, and we need the most support, but we aren't able to fully communicate that. And so as the body is constantly changing from inception to actual transition, there's so many opportunities to work in a non-pain space. And so I started the Partners Workshop to really help partners connect, not only on a physical yogic experience, but also relationally and communicatively, so that when the time comes, they're able to really exchange without words, or they're really connected because they've been so determined to connect throughout the gestation. And so my own personal experience, I wish I had a me. So I really became passionate about, having a positive experience that, I realized that if I didn't have me, no one else was experiencing this positive experience because of what's really behind the gestational experience for people of color and the browner communities. And so because of my own trauma, I stopped wanting the desire to actually be in the birth space, because there's very little control you have when there's such an overtone of, we're going to commandeer this experience for you regardless of whatever your skin color looks like. And you really don't have a say when you really want this natural birth. And so the trauma in and of itself pushed me to really drive into being a gestational coach. And a gestational coach, combining all of my modalities of care, allows me to really delve into, let's take every day as though it's important to the last day. And so making every day count is really important, because how you treat your body in your first trimester will show up how your body's going to respond in your last trimester, even in the birth experience. And so instead of just waiting, I can take a yoga class later, or I can take a childbirth education class later, that's when it becomes overwhelming. That's when we pack the body with stress. That's when we, you know, release different hormones rather than the oxytocin and the endorphins. And so my goal as a gestational coach is to support people, to support expectants to really tap into all that time in the 8, 9, 10 months, you know. And so when it comes to how we are so conditioned to just wait, or we're tired, or we're exhausted, we don't have the space. I always like to remind people that if the outcome that you're looking for, if the goal that you're looking for is to have an enjoyable experience, start now. And so because of my own experience, I started a project called the Melanin Bump. And I was afforded, if you go to themelaninbump.com and you go to my story, you'll see me on a rock climbing wall, pregnant and all, 9 months pregnant, you know, bouldering, because I just found so much power in being on the wall. And I'm an avid rock climber. So my maternity chute was gifted to me, and it was the best one. It was exactly what I envisioned, you know, this powerful pose of a pregnant, extremely pregnant woman on the bouldering wall. And so I started the Melanin Bump because I wanted other women, expectants of color, to have that experience, because to be honest, in some of our communities, we don't have disposable income, and we don't have that affordability to get maternity shoots. And so with the 6 bumps that we have so far, you know, brings joy to me that I'm able to impact in the pregnancy, make them feel good, make them feel sexy, make them feel amazing to be beautiful and pregnant. And so the Melanin Bump really reaches towards helping women just accept and be afforded the opportunity to be photographed. So in a nutshell, that is who has led me to this space. And so at this present moment, I am a student of 8 Branches, 8 Branches Academy of Eastern Medicine, as I am pursuing my doctorate of acupuncture here in Toronto, Canada. And I am extremely passionate, again, about gestational coaching and supporting the gestation. And so my specialty is perinatal care and oncology as I study acupuncture. And that led me to start AcuConvos, which allows me to talk to acupuncturists of color, both in the brown, Latina, or the persons of color, Black community, that are actual acupuncturists, practicing acupuncturists. And so you know the options that are available to you, because a lot of people think that it's just for pain management. But to be honest, it's like if your liver is off balance, that can really impact your liver, your pregnancy. But an acupuncturist can support you for your whole gestation. So again, you know, those are options that I'm really wanting to reintroduce, as well as to yell from the mountaintops that this can help, you know, that end of pregnancy experience if you, again, start from now and start from day one. So I think that was a whole lot.
So a few things. First of all, I just want to say I did interview an acupuncturist here in Brooklyn that I think you should really link up with, just to touch base. She is very powerful. She's a woman of color. She owns her own studio here in Brooklyn. So definitely I'll send you that information. You know, I'm so grateful to have the time and the space and really to have you here, because as we were talking about this before we started recording, it was really hard for me to find a woman of color that is teaching yoga, specializing in birth work and prenatal yoga, and really you do so much more than what I was looking for. In terms of the interview, I was like, oh my God, I really hit the gold mine with this. Like, she does photography, she's a gestational coach. What is a gestational coach? So yeah, it means a lot, because, you know, representation matters, especially in the birth world, especially when your body is changing. It was really tough for me to Google prenatal yoga classes and just see, like, you know, the same pregnant woman, the same white, petite, pregnant woman, no fat except in her belly. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I really need to find more inclusive spaces. So I'm very grateful that you're able to share a little bit about what brought you to the experience, to your purpose, to your current goals. And I definitely wanted to ask you. So I know you said as throughout your journey, you had trauma throughout your birth experience. But I'm wondering what was it that really led you to include prenatal yoga in your yoga practice? If you can just share a little bit about that.
So twofold. The importance of yoga isn't just the asana. Of course, labor requires labor. And so I always have the frame of mind that like you have to do work to kind of prepare the body. And so in my own personal experience, making sure to include physical activity that was also relaxing and also brought a little bit of centering to myself, brought me back inward, because meditation can be in anything. But the pregnancy, I feel, is the most meditative. When you are in labor, you really have to hone in, go inward. What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? It's a meditation. You have to connect to self. It is when you disconnect from self that's where the disgruntled, the pain, but when you start into breathing, which is what's important, one of the factors of incorporating the pranayama of pregnancies is the fact that our most consistent activity is breathing. That is if we start life with a breath, we end life with a breath. We are breathing all the time. But most of the times as adults, we are breathing in the wrong system. We are breathing in the stress system. We are breathing into our upper body because we have to be in the survival mode. And so with the pregnancy, it's a good way to remember to remind you to get back to that original state of breathing into the diaphragm, breathing into the core, breathing into the belly, because that's the baby's breath, but that also should be our breath, because that will keep us calm. Because again, when we get good oxygen to our baby, ourselves, our mind, our muscles, they can function well together. And when we deprive that because we're stressed or, we're, over being pregnant, those things will disrupt our breath, and they will disrupt our connection to self and the experience. And so that's one of the reasons why, as I mentioned, my little angel, AJ, she really reminded me that like pregnancy is a beautiful thing and a beautiful experience, and we can keep it that way. But most of the times there's so many things that come in the way from us really connecting to that beauty. And it's beauty in self, because we grow not only physically, but we grow as individuals. We grow as into our roles as parents. And so when we are doing our yoga practice, whether I'm teaching it or practicing it, you're remembering that you're really uplifting this entire pregnancy. And it's not just asana. It is really, my son is like opening the door.
Totally fine.
Come here, Papa, come here.
Yeah, this is a family inclusive space. We are so okay with all children showing up in our webinars.
I'm like, really, just give me a minute. But yeah, we're uplifting the entire presence of the pregnancy, but most of all, we are lifting up the two beings that are really, going to make an impact on the world and society. Thank you, Papa. Here.
So you did mention a few things, and I just wanted to highlight those things. So the first thing was that you did say that it helps with breathing, and it helps with uplifting the pregnancy. And so these benefits are really important, not just for the labor process or the birthing process, but you did also talk about how it's important to take care of self from before, even prior to that. So I'm just curious if you can share a little bit more about prenatal yoga and how that would help you take care of yourself before your actual birth experience, because I know the general recommendations of being physically active, it's so funny because a lot of times expectant persons, they will say, oh no, I can't exercise anymore because I'm pregnant now. I can't. Oh no, no, no. And not everyone realizes that, yeah, you definitely can exercise. You should exercise. If you've been exercising, definitely continue. So, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about taking care of self and how you can use prenatal yoga to help you achieve that.
So I am from the school of thought that everything. Okay, all right, all right, all right, ready? You gotta stand over there. Yeah, stand over there. So while I was recording, while you're recording, I had to set it up so he could look like he's recording.
Oh,
So
so cute. Listen, this is the future. They're learning from us, right? So they're like, okay, mom, I got this.
he's totally trying to be me. Because I always I'm podcasting and interviewing people. So he's always like, I'm gonna interview somebody or take a picture. So the important part about physical activity, including and definitely surrounding prenatal yoga, is the consistency of body movement. So let's think about it as this. When we are in a very sedentary space, we are not developing muscles. We're not utilizing them effectively. Oh, Papa, do you really need to do this right now? Okay, here you go. Now you can see it, all right? When we're, I'll give a specific group. If we're sitting on our butt all day, our hamstrings are contracted, but they're not working. But they're underdeveloped at this point. They take the weight of our thigh, they take the weight of our torso. And then, when we actually need the strength of our hamstrings, they become very tight. They pull on our glutes. They pull on our lower back. And then if we have core that's underdeveloped, then, we're literally not using the core to support the torso. So that kind of effect almost amplifies during pregnancy, because you now have additional water weight, you have additional body weight because of the expansion of the pregnancy, and now you have a fetus. So now we have all these previously underdeveloped muscles that may even not expand or even be worked because we're either at home, we're not doing activities. And so when we think about it, when we transition into the labor, we need those muscles. We need them to actually work. So if, when the labor kicks in and you're like, oh my God, all right, it's starting. You then have either adrenaline pushing you, which has a very short span. It's not going to last for hours to more than hours. And I don't put fear in the fact that labor can be as long as, mine was 4 days. So, imagine people 4 days of labor, that's a long time. But again, when you're accustomed to breathing or connecting to the body, it can look different for everybody's experiences. But when we get into the space where now we need our body to work with us and we're not actively working it, when our muscles are developed through practice of yoga, through practice of walking, through practice of physical activity, those muscles are developed so that when we are in our unconscious state, our bodies our involuntary state, our bodies have muscles to work with. But if they don't, then they're literally exhausting you even more, because now there's nothing that they're pulling from, but they've got to do this work. So it is important to have prenatal yoga, not just the relaxing kind, because yes, relaxing is great. We always want to relax, but we also need the active parts of prenatal yoga, because we need to, again, stress those underdeveloped compact muscles, but we also need to strengthen them so that they stay strong. One of the things I still do with my mamas when they're in, or my parents when they're pregnant, guess what? The core is going to help you. Why? What is in the core? We have our pecs, we have our diaphragm, we have our abdominals, transverse abdominals, we even have our glutes. And so when please leave it up, thank you. When we're working the core, that core is literally going to help us when our body needs to expel or dispel the baby. So if we're using our diaphragm, we're using our core. If we need to give it a gentle nudge or a push, I don't advise pushing because there's schools of thoughts, but that if we need to push, for instance, if we need to use our core, how likely would you be strong to use it if you didn't develop it, or if you did develop it? You could be way strong where that pushing can take a couple of minutes, which I've seen with my doula clients, where I had a CrossFitter. Her pushing time was literally, she did twice. When it was like time, she's fully diarrhea, you have to push now. And she's like, of course, she did her push, she did two. And like that, but she had been laboring for a long time. And so with her labor, I think it was about 22, 23 hours when the time came and she had to push. The core really helped her. And it wasn't something that she had to think about, like I had to squeeze this core. It was something that was already like happening because the body was already strong. So it's really important to look at all of prenatal yoga, the breath work, the relaxation of it, the empowerment of it, the movement of it, the flow, the kinetic energy of it. All of it really does help the body to evolve to be more supportive in the actual birth experience.
My goodness, I love that explanation because you really dove deep into all of the mechanic part, the mental part, and just the holistic approach of practicing. So, I did want to say that one of the reasons why I really wanted more information on this is that a lot of pregnant persons at this time, and especially in the past couple of months in light of COVID, have not really been able to move their bodies. They have been very hesitant to go outside, to even walk. Whereas, maybe in the past they would have thought to, okay, I'll go to a prenatal yoga class, or I'll try this. And so some of them are resorting to having online classes. Maybe I'll give it a shot, maybe I'll try. And some don't even know where to go. And so as we were mentioning, it was really hard for me to find someone who I felt was, I guess, more reflective, or someone I felt like I could relate to or communicate with, and just in terms of culture, just in terms of background. And so I'm wondering, so I definitely want to talk to you about the inclusivity of yoga. And I'm really wondering if you've been in spaces, or are yoga spaces inclusive, or where do we find inclusive spaces? Because like I want our communities to have access to it, but I've been in yoga classes where I may be the only person of color, and I personally don't necessarily feel any type of way about it. But then when you're looking around, there's no different bodies around. Like, it's the same prototype that's practicing, and you may be the only body that stands out that's different. And I don't really want anyone to feel uncomfortable. So I just wanted to ask you about whether yoga spaces can be inclusive. Where can you find some inclusive yoga spaces, if you don't mind sharing that with us?
So I have been I can think back to my clients, and even, being a doula to persons of color, Black women, it took a little bit of convincing, because, it has been portrayed as a luxury kind of white only space, and it has excluded a lot of the conversation of, and some women have taken, some yoga teachers and professionals have taken, more of a vocal stance on including and making it accessible to the communities. And so I have been in a space where I'm the only teacher, I'm the only difference amongst, the class, and I'm teaching it. So I would love to see more expectants of color and, Black and Latina expectants to really be involved with the yoga classes. One of the things is accessibility of whether they can afford it. And so it's like, when you have $20 a week, it can totally add up to, is it $20 worth of food, or is it $20 worth of, paying a bill that's more important so you're not homeless while you're pregnant? Like, those things are mental spaces that really kind of can prohibit that ability of access, which makes the space more inclusive. Since the George Floyd murder, there has been a lot of conversation about, oh, we want BIPOC community or IPOC community members, Black and Indigenous and persons of color within the yoga space. But then it was driven because there was a cry for acknowledgement to Black Lives Matter, and there was a cry to, you know, really turning on off the blinders and turning on the sights for people to see, well, this space really isn't inclusive. And so when I think about it, you have a lot of people that mean well, that ally well, but then not necessarily really support well. And I mean that in the fact that as a new racial equity consultant, which I have become, which is my series called The Unpacking Combos, we talk about making the space available for them to be uplifted. Not for you to tokenize them because all of a sudden we need diversity. No. It is actually including your finances, your contribution to make a platform for them to stand on, for them to be uplifted. So when it comes down to yoga spaces, I was approached by a yoga teacher who wanted to gift BIPOC scholarships to people to train with their studio to become a prenatal yoga teacher. And I said, that's great. What does your training offer for their community? What information are you teaching that speaks to them and their community? What are you providing for them that allows you to continue to uplift them to be in their own community? I never got a response back. So, you know, that goes to say that a lot of people, again, are allying well in the fact that, like, I'm giving away money or I'm giving away spaces, but they're not necessarily, who are you texting? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So I was wondering, like, why is he doing so much? You can't do but so much when the phone's locked. But no, it really needs to be more of a bigger conversation that doesn't subside just because, you know, the time has passed from the last fatality, you know? And so finding inclusive spaces are, you know, Black Yoga Teacher Alliance, for one, is a resource where you can find teachers of color. You can find Black teachers. Those will allow you, that resource will allow you to, you know, connect and, okay, I'm looking for a Black teacher. I'm looking for a Latina teacher. Those are resources because they are dedicated to actually supporting Black communities. I'm not sure where your Yoga Alliance is in regards to, here, this is a Black studio. Here, this is a Latina studio. There's still that, let's not talk on it because we're all one people kind of a conversation. And I'm like, no, we need it. So in regards to being connected in the community, people can reach out to me individually and I can definitely provide them inclusive spaces, but it really is a who you know to get you what you need situation to have that conversation. And also doulas of color. Doulas of color, also like yourself, myself, we have resources that can connect people to what they're looking for or do the digging for them. And that's, you know, one of the important parts of gestational coaching is that we're coaching you, but we're also consulting with you to get you what you need. And again, it really is having, who can you talk to? The community centers should know, or community agencies that support gestational women should also have resources to women, to expectants that are teachers that teach expectants that kind of, you know, have the representation that they're looking for. So sadly, I model myself to want to be inclusive. Again, it takes education for the community that I would like to include. And then it also takes support from the already lacking diverse community to uplift me, to make more spaces inclusive, and make it accessible. So
Yeah, I mean, you definitely shared a lot of points that I've been thinking and kind of focusing on in my mind, but haven't been able to articulate, like especially with what you were saying about a lot of people who want to show allyship but have no idea how to do it and don't really have any idea on how to be inclusive. And what that really means. And like, so I'm also a registered dietitian, and we are very much struggling with that in our field, because we really have a lack of diversity. And so we have a lot of performative allyship and no real, um, no real alliances in terms of actionable steps to improve and support and uplift the community. So I did want to ask though, and this wasn't on my list of questions, but do you have like online classes that people can join in and from the comfort of their home? Because one of the things that COVID did was it kind of took away the need for physical space, although we need physical space, but we couldn't really do that at this time. So a lot of like my clients, a lot of the people that I serve, I was looking for online spaces, and I'm like, whew, this was a task. a true a true test of endurance, because I was just dead end. No one looked like me, no one looked like any of my clients. So if you can just like highlight where someone can go to access your classes, I would really love that for my own clients, for all the people that are going to listen in. So where can someone go?
So right now, I am private classes. My private classes are the same cost as like a yoga class. And the only reason for that is because at the beginning, if you scroll all the way down on like all the flyers I have on Yoga with Alleah, you'll see like I offered prenatal classes, and I found that there was a lot of crickets. There was a lot of, and also it was a timing, because everybody had transitioned to online. So everybody was offering a class and everyone was wanting to. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put this here. I'm still a yoga teacher. I haven't changed any of my like who I am and what I do. Like I am a prenatal, a perinatal yoga teacher. But you know, if you want a class, you can reach out to me and it can be a private class. Because the thing is, what I found was, even if I set a time, oh, I'm not available at that time, but I'd love a class. Okay, when are you available? Okay, we'll do a class then. I recently just had a client who transitioned to parenthood, and we had, she was, you know, dealing with some things with her pregnancy, and the physical movement wasn't, there were other variables that impacted. And so I was like, okay, if we're not doing the yoga, at least we can do, you know, check-ins. So we know what you're doing. You have plans, you have goals. We can, you know, because again, as a gestational coach, it's more than just a yoga for me, because it's a well-rounded, including diet, including, you know, please, thank you. Please let's not do that. Okay, leave it inside. And so if anyone wants a yoga class with me, I would say, or wants a yoga class, I will specifically set time outside of the normal blocks of the days yoga and the weekends yoga. I'm pretty open and flexible to accommodate a personal class. And if at that point, you know, someone's looking for, if there's a group of persons looking for the same day, like, hey, Wednesday at 5 works for me, and then I will plan a class. But it hasn't been a push for me to like, let me establish this class and constantly promote it, when again, it's also awareness of where people are looking for yoga. So again, I'm a resource if people need yoga. So Yoga with Alleah, Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, soon to be.com, which
You know what? I am going to, because I trained with Ancient Song Doula Services in Brooklyn, and they basically train doulas from a social justice standpoint. And I am going to send all of my doula connects your information. And that way, if they do have clients that are interested, if, like you said, if it's enough clients where you can maybe have like a once a week class or what, however you structure it, that, because we have a very, very intense need for inclusive yoga classes, inclusive spaces, and especially during this time virtually. So I will personally like send that out to my collective, and hopefully we can get something started, because honestly, I'm not even expecting and I would join your class. I'm like, let me have some virtual yoga, prenatal yoga classes. So that leads me to my next question. So prenatal yoga, I'm so curious as to when you would suggest someone start taking those classes. Like, for example, I'm not expecting, but if I'm in my journey to start preparing my body to get pregnant, would you advise I start then? Would you advise once I'm pregnant? So what would be your advice in terms of when to start practicing prenatal yoga?
So I think
Aww.
it's when you take something away that they really want to play with, and they're like, it's a big no. It's like,
Yeah.
things that, yeah, can you go to the potty for mommy? Or not even for me, but for yourself. Can you go take care of yourself and come back? Okay. Auntie Stephanie's coming soon. Okay. Um, so we're, one moment, please.
No worries. Yeah, no worries. So I'll talk a little bit as Alleah tends to her child, because we are definitely family inclusive here. So yeah, so I just wanted to share some information in terms of prenatal yoga. So when we are, as a doula and even as a registered dietitian, we always talk about how to incorporate physical exercise. And what I love about yoga in general is that yoga is movement that works with your body. So you don't really need much equipment. You need just a mat. Sometimes instructors will have additional equipment like a block, straps, but it really does depend just on your body and minimal equipment. And just as Alleah was highlighting, it focuses on breathing techniques. It helps you ease into movement. It can be as intensive or it can be as relaxing as your instructor and you seek. So I really love the different modalities that prenatal yoga brings. And so Alleah was going to tell us a little bit more about when she would recommend you start practicing prenatal yoga. So I'll let you go ahead and explain.
And so when it comes down to how you prepare the body, you aren't waiting for the event to happen. You want to do the prep work. And so if you are wanting to start the family planning process, start yoga then. Because even then, it's like you're getting the body conditioned into that particular movement. Most physicians and doctors will tell you, don't start a new activity once you're pregnant. Because again, it takes a lot of adjustment and changing. And so soon, go and sit down and finish your food. Yeah, go and sit inside the kitchen. Siéntate en la cocina. Siéntate en la cocina, por favor. Thank you. So when you are
Preparing yourself. No worries.
brain fog with mommy brain. It's like, so when you're preparing yourself, you want to make sure that you are taking the time to really get into the movement, the consistency of yoga, what it requires of you. Then you start to build a habit. Most times people will tell you to stop anything vigorous because the first trimester is a tricky trimester. It's whether or not the actual pregnancy wants to stay or the pregnancy will terminate. And when it comes to that, you have to listen to yourself. You're not going, doing crazy, postures that you've never done before in your first trimester. But if you're accustomed to handstands, and your body's totally adjusted to it, enjoy them. Continue to do what you enjoy. So when you're looking to have that support for your gestation, I don't advise you to stop. However, if you have never started and you now you're pregnant, be gentle with yourself. Anything you want to try, be gentle in the first trimester. So you're not going into handstands and headstands when you just get, I remember this, I could do this. No, you're more of like, okay, I'm going to start with maybe a gentle flow, a slow flow, or I'm starting with maybe some restorative yoga or yin yoga. There, in the first trimester, you've got so much more to the body that's happening, and it can change. And so you have to listen to yourself. You have to listen to what your body's communicating. I didn't mention this, but my book is coming out at the end of October called The Gestation Coach. And one of the things I talk about in The Gestation Coach is how we need to separate external experiences from our internal experiences. Because we tend to, oh, my friend got pregnant and she did yoga and she really didn't, she lost the baby. That's going to happen to me. That's where we have to separate. And that separation also allows us to have our own internal
baby.
Yeah, baby. Can you go and sit down and eat your food in the kitchen, please? Please go and sit down in the kitchen. So when we are, preparing for ourselves, we're then, again, that meditation, what I was speaking about earlier, is that we're tuning into ourselves and our communication. So if we're not enjoying an experience, that's our body telling us I don't like it. Because there's going to be times when you're doing a yoga pose, it feels really great yesterday, but then today baby's like, I don't like this. Again, there's communications. And so when we separate that external experience and experience it for ourselves, we then afford ourselves the opportunity to, again, start to condition our body from inception to, to transition, to labor. And when we have that ability, again, we're training the body in that 9-month time span to then adjust to the gentleness, to the strengthening, to the actual, the need. So I recommend, if you want to try yoga, try your teachers out like you try out shoes. One of them is going to fit, one of them is going to feel real bad. The other one, don't write it off just because of one bad experience. And if it means that, you're kind of doing the Goldilocks of yoga, prenatal yoga, where, this porridge doesn't feel great, this porridge tastes great, but I don't really like it, then that lets you know that you're still moving in the process. Second, you're also finding a fit for you with what works with your body. And even if those of you who are working on the family process, same goes for that. You may find a teacher that doesn't specifically work on prenatal yoga, but then they've gotten you in this comfortable state of class. Continue with them after. They may not specifically be trained in prenatal yoga, but they'll be mindful, and all trainings do touch and specifically address prenatal clients and students. Look who it is. Look who it is. Yay. So if you, again, like a teacher, enjoy the teacher. Don't stop. If you want a new teacher, again, find a teacher before, your pregnancy, and then, see, because you can also start with a prenatal yoga teacher before you're pregnant, and then they will carry you through the gentleness, relaxation, all the way through the end. So there's options for people who are looking to start yoga.
That sounds so great. I mean, I love how you mentioned to listen to your body, to pay attention to what your threshold is, to what feels comfortable to you, to how you react to your teacher. I think those are all great tips. And you did mention, like in the beginning, you have to be mindful that there are changes happening. So I'm just wondering, and you did mention that there are some people that they have to watch how much or the intensity in which that they move. So are there any flat out contraindications, like any pregnant person that really should speak to their provider first, or speak to their midwife or their OB before they start any type of exercise? Anything you can think of or highlight for us?
So one thing that comes to mind is if someone has a placenta previa, which means that the placenta is not in its customary place. For some, it can actually transition on its own. It can move into place on its own. Or for some people, they may need adjustment. And some people, it just never moves. It just stays right where it is. That can be one of those things where, you know, you're not doing certain postures because it's uncomfortable to the placement of where the baby, where the placenta is, where, you know, the body is. If there's any prior injuries, that's also you want to be mindful of. I want to say everyone is different, because most of the times everyone tells you stay away from these particular postures, but then I've seen expectants do those postures. So for me to say, like for instance, misinformation was provided in my teacher training. You're not allowed to do downward dog after 36 weeks. And that was what was taught to me. But then speaking with other yoga teachers that had been trained or in that, there was nothing that said that was, you know, that's going to flip baby. And, you know, and so that's also something, is to be wary of misinformation. And so you can ask, because if you break down the anatomy of it, or you break down the physiology of it, it can be very possible for some bodies and impossible for for other bodies. So I don't particularly subscribe to, you can't do this pose because just it's in the book, you can't do it. More of, what is your body telling you when you try this posture? Like I said, people will tell you not to do handstands and headstands. If you go to a couple of my pages, you'll see I did a couple of headstands, because again, we spend most of our time feet down, instead of feet down, head up, instead of reverse, where head down, feet up. And the yin and yang of yoga, the balance of yoga, is to have the balance of both in pregnancy, both out of pregnancy. So again, it's really, you have to listen to your body. You have to listen to what it's communicated before. You have to, because this is another thing, is that people will tell you not to do aerial yoga. And I created a prenatal area sequence and yoga for silk practice. It is such a supportive practice, because you have now this external support that actually can support you. But everybody will tell you it's dangerous. Inversions are dangerous. The spine needs to be expanded. But there's such compression that occurs because gravity is pulling all of our weight down, including the baby. So then we're slouching. And then when you make the suggestion, like you can do, you know, a supported puppy dog with aerial silks, a doctor will tell you, no, don't do it, because they don't know anything about it and they perceive that there's danger, so they discourage you. But then the moment that you're guided by a trained professional, you might actually find that you'll find more enjoyment and space in your pregnancy. So again, yoga teachers are to be trained. Some train more than others, but you have to be mindful of, again, what's your body communicating when they're teaching you what they're teaching you. Are you in pain? If you are discomfort, listen to that. That's a communicator that maybe you can ask them for more comfort measures, or you can ask them for support because this posture didn't work for you. But they're trained professionals, just like doctors are trained professionals. And so again, it's doctors. I'm not discrediting doctors. However, when we put esteem to doctors that they have all the answers, that means they have to have studied everything. And sometimes what we need is just a vote of confidence. Like, should I do this or should I not do this? But it's more of trust yourself, trust what your body's communicating, trust inwardly. Again, I'm an acupuncturist student, so I'm like, there's so much more that people may not know, but
no, yeah. I mean, and we do have a question here from Liz. I don't know if you touched on this already, but I was told not to twist and turn because the oxygen levels might drop. I don't know if you would like to answer that for her now. So are you allowed to do twisting positions, turning positions, or is that like off the option chart?
So one, I'd have to understand what is the other subset of the drop in oxygen, because when you're twisting, you are supposed to still breathe. You're inhaling, you're expanding, and when you're belly breathing, that's another thing, is that you're not inhaling and pulling the breath into the chest and then twisting. You're actually breathing into the belly space, expanding it, and then allowing that rotation. The the aspect of when you're losing oxygen is when you're not actually feeding yourself oxygen. So if you are naturally going to reach something down on the floor, you're twisting. Your body has to twist. That's the mechanics of our spine. So you may not be deliberately twisting intentionally, which you can still do, but you might be twisting to open the door, or twisting to get in the shower, or twisting because you got to tie your shoe. So those are mechanics that are naturally happening in the body, but we're told specifically, don't focus on twisting, but our bodies are going to do it anyway. So again, I have to understand what is behind, Liz, what's behind the doctor saying that? So do you have a dysfunction? And I say dysfunction meaning, do you have a space in your body that you had an injury before, you have an ail, you have a disorder, you have a something that is prohibiting full oxygen flow to your body? Or is it that you're spoken to that says, if you twist, you're going to lose oxygen to the baby? If there's that, you can know when you lose oxygen, because your body will tell you, I need oxygen. So that's, again, your body's communicating to you that, oh, I'm not breathing. Hey, let me kick you to breathe. And another thing is deprivation of oxygen. How long are you twisting? How long? Because when I teach twisting, I teach from your comfort. And I'm one of those twisters that, like, I literally, pregnant and all, I will twist over. However, my body's not your body. So that comes to the exploration of self. Okay, if I just look over my shoulder, how do I feel? If I just, kind of tilt to the side and twist this way, because again, 6 degrees of the rotation of the spine is what promotes the health of it. That includes back bends, forward folds, side twists, lateral and side to side, and torso twist. Because again, we need to wring out the synovial fluid and get new synovial fluid in there. This compression that's always happening, how do we elongate it? So those things, we have to think about the health of the entire spine. Okay, so again, this comes into, so she said yes. The second one just told me, they just told me. I think it was, the holding of the pose and twisting. Again, if you haven't twisted it in 9 months, you're gonna feel real yummy when you finally take a twist. But again, it's a matter of what are you doing and how often you're doing it. If your body's accustomed to twisting, why stop it when you're pregnant? The same thing that people say is that, you shouldn't do certain exercises because you can add pressure to baby. I'm like, but that's why you have placenta and that amniotic sac to actually give you water in the body to actually protect baby. So why do you think that it's going to be so easy to puncture like a balloon? Like you have layers, you have muscles, you have so many things, but people will say to you, you can't forward fold because you can squeeze on baby. If baby didn't like it, guess what? You're going to get a kick to your lungs. Simple. But if you like it, you support that spine.
Yeah, great point. And then I also wanted to ask, so obviously as you go further along in your pregnancy, your body changes more. And so I'm wondering, when you're working with your clients or with your students, do you modify positions for them? Like, let's say you're teaching a class and you are guiding them through a position and they're uncomfortable, or you can see that they're uncomfortable. So do positions change as per the student, or as per the class, or as per where you are in the pregnancy? So I'm just curious about how you modify that.
So my classes are beginner basic classes. You can definitely take them at any point in your life, whether you're pregnant or not. And the reason for that is because when you can master the beginning, then you can then transition to more. You can feel like you can access the others. But if you don't have the basics down, that's when injuries come into play, because then you're rushing to get to, oh, I want to do this amazing pose, and you really didn't, stack the skeletal system strongly in this one particular pose that's going to really support you in that next pose. So when people are practicing with me, I do keep in mind the 6 degrees of rotation of the spine. I keep in mind the core dynamics. So we're breathing, we're working on core. As I mentioned earlier, I have my expectants holding plank. Why do we need plank? Because we need to strengthen the quadriceps, we need to strengthen the glutes, we need to strengthen all of those postures. But is that, would that be necessarily your standard yoga pose? Some people are, they're short-winded in regard to their breath. So we work on that. So we do the ABCs of plank. We're singing the ABCs, we're talking and we're breathing and we're literally strengthening. So we're having a multi-dynamic, cross-functional experience where we have to do more than once, because the labor is not going to separate itself. So if a body is transitioning, they can't do seated king's pose where, legs are stacked on each other and they're sitting on their tailbone. It hurts to sit on their tailbone. We'll adjust. But I do encourage, again, them being able to communicate that to me lets me know that they're doing what the internal meditation work for themselves. So they're able to say, oh, this doesn't feel good. Great. How do we transition? Or this feels better than it did last time. The body's expanded and now we may be able to transition to a little bit more yummy of a pose. And so if a body is completely inaccessible to a pose, then we try something that can still access those muscles and still be able to give the strength that the prior position or posture was able to provide. So there's always fluidity with the classes. I don't teach from what I want. I teach from what the students want. So, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being you feel like you can lift a whole school building, 1 feeling like you just want to be under the covers all day. And that gives me a gauge as to like, okay, we'll have a little bit more intensity today versus, the next class, which may have a lot more relaxation. And the tailoring of the classes gives them the experience that they want, maybe pushes them a little bit more to get them the experiences that they need. And then at the same time, they're getting all of the benefits of both.
Beautiful. And I love that you tailor it to the individual, because let's just be honest, a lot of the deterrents can be someone saying, oh, I'm not used to being physically fit. I'm never used to exercise, or I'm embarrassed. I'm not going to be able to do the positions, or
I'm not flexible.
I'm not flexible. Is anyone in the class going to like judge me for not being as flexible? And I feel like it's like that self-awareness, that self-talk, just being able to tune into what you showed up for, and where you are, acknowledging that, and then moving forward. I think that's so powerful. So, and you have so much information and insight that's just so valuable. So I'm wondering, for birthing persons who might be more interested and they need resources, or they want to look up more about yoga and pregnancy, are there any specific resources you think would be helpful to our community that you would like to share?
Oh my goodness.
If you had to pick like 1 or 2, because I know
because I'm like Google people, but then like I look at Google and I'm just like, that's your nemesis in some instances. Don't be discouraged in not connecting with the yoga teacher that you're looking for or you're seeking after, because even now when I think about it, it's I only had white teachers, and but I still needed yoga. So it was that, not that I have to settle for just the white teachers, but more of like, okay, today I'm going to take a yoga class, but I'm still going to look for the yoga class that I want. And that's one of the biggest things, is because, again, think of the benefit of what it actually brings versus the connection, because the connection part can deter people from actually just participating at all. And I want to encourage people to continue to participate, but also still continue to look. Also connect. be deliberate in connections, because building that connection helps you to build community later on. It is a muscle that needs work, networking and meeting with, for instance, if they're reaching out to you or they're reaching out to Ancient Song, then that becomes a charge to the community. How can we support this expectant? How can we get her or them the resource that they need? How can we, provide them a better experience? And so now you're asking your community to help you. Don't be pregnant by yourself. and that's also another thing, is that you are reminding yourself that even postpartum, you're going to need help. You're going to need to connect. You're going to need those very same resources that you had prenatally. You're going to need them postnatally. And so even if you don't find something directly, like I'm looking for a Black prenatal yoga teacher, if you don't find it specifically through that, connect with that teacher and say, connect with a teacher that is a prenatal yoga teacher. Hey, by chance, would you know a person of color or any member of the IPOC community that can teach prenatal yoga? They should not get offended if they're a yoga teacher. And then they also should be able to provide you with additional resources. So don't be afraid to ask for a yoga teacher to find you the resource you're looking for. And don't be afraid to ask the doula community as well, because that's why they're doulas, because they're there to serve the experience. And so they should have a myriad, a book, or even a plethora of resources to be like, oh, you know what? Let me get back to you. But, again, it took you asking Vero to be like, prenatal, as a matter of fact, I do, and so it just, at some point, we may have not gotten the first part of the pregnancy, but eventually, the way we connected literally in the later part of somebody else's connect. Hey, I found that yoga teacher. You want that yoga teacher? Sure, I'll take it. And something is better than nothing. But again, give the charge to your community to support you in your pregnancy and find the resources that you're looking for.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And I love what you said. If you are looking for that knowledge in that type of class, try and see if you connect to the teacher. And if you don't, you try another one. And then once you have that connection, then you can ask for someone from the community that you're looking for, and possibly try to attend those classes, but don't just not go. And I think that that's like so important, because like I told you, there are a lot of spaces where we don't see representation of ourselves, of our communities, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't access those resources, because we need those resources. And so that leads me to the next question, which you kind of touched on already, but what would be your advice to Black and Brown birthing persons preparing to give birth now? So you were saying, try to remember that, don't be pregnant by yourself, look for your community. Is there anything else that you would want to kind of emphasize that they should try to look for or do? Any advice that you'd like to share?
So as an avid promoter and believer in acupuncture, find an acupuncturist. The reason for that, for gestational acupuncture, is that it can help in so many ways. And my personal experience is not everyone else's, but it does speak on the power of acupuncture, in the fact that depression can be impactful from not just your mind space. It actually starts a whole lot lower. It can start in the stomach, having a poor gut. It can start in the liver or the spleen or the gallbladder. And acupuncturists can support that, so that it can improve your overall quality of health, as well as babies. So when people are looking for support in that aspect, how can I help my body feel better? Look to acupuncture. There are amazing acupuncturists throughout the New York City area. So if there are anyone looking for that, there's also the blackacupuncturist.com, where people can find acupuncturists there. And again, I can't stress it enough, how impactful that is for transition. A lot of people use it for pain management, which is good because again, the body is, really expanding, bones are stretching, everything is happening. So there is discomfort. However, there's other functionalities of it that really does promote a positive birth experience. Because again, if there's a way to help you transition through your transition, there's less interventions. There's less need for interventions. There's the pre-active work. There is the, doing the work before the work is necessary. And also postpartum. I'm a big advocate of, we just celebrated Black Breastfeeding Week. I'm a big, huge advocate of breastfeeding. Most times people are like, oh, your milk isn't coming in, you need to supplement. And there also may be the fact that something was just distressed during the pregnancy and was never addressed. And so just a simple few traditional Chinese herbs or acupuncture can really set you back on a good course, to the point that you might start lactating on your own and in abundance. So again, those are modalities of health that are really underutilized and underconsidered during pregnancy and even postnatally, that I'm like, please, please, please go and see an acupuncturist that really can support not only just the gestational experience, but the whole entire, both bodies. So that's one. And then the second one I have is to make sure to have community plans. So that you have, if you have family, awesome, put them to work before they actually need to be put to work. If you have a partner or a spouse that can support you, really utilize having a team dynamic of, delegating things, because again, postpartumly is where you need that support. So starting now, building that communication, building those things, help the parenting muscles start to get flexed. And then having, the community know what you need. You need a meal train, you need someone to come and give you food. You can have the meals already, planned up for you, to kind of help you during just the transition from your third trimester into labor. Because again, that is, it is really supportive on the mind space to keep you centered into the me space. And I recommend, even if it's a resource that's not here and you see of a lot of midwives or doulas or persons of color or Black doulas in other areas, tap into their resources there, whereas this information that they're sharing that you can take into your own pregnancy, because that's also helpful as well, because it's information that's supported to your community, even if it's not in your direct community. So don't eliminate that. I think
Those
those
are such great tips.
are.
Yeah, no, you're definitely thinking outside the box, right? Because I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. Like, you can reach out to anyone virtually. Like, I reached out to you on Instagram and was like, oh my God, because someone was kind enough to share your information. Like, don't limit yourself to just what's directly around you. I love that. I love that you said voice your concerns, voice what you need. A lot of times people are just so hesitant to say, hey, I'm really going to need help making meals or going grocery shopping. And a lot of people don't really want to interfere, or they feel like they're interfering with the postpartum period. You're home with baby. So it's good to use your voice before, during, and after your pregnancy. So I love all of those tips. Those are great. And so I did want to just leave off with this last question, because we really talked about exercise in terms of prenatal yoga, and really, I think a lot of like mental preparation. You really touched a lot about that mind, body, and spirit connection. But I'm just curious, what would be like one thing that you wish, or what is one thing that you wish birthing persons of color knew about exercising and pregnancy? If you could just share one thing, what would that be?
Do it. Like, do it every day. Find movement in the body every day. Do not, when you're tired, find space to do it. Because again, it's when you're exhausted and you don't actually do physical activity, you get more exhausted. So it's a perpetual exhaustion because your body's not moving. But if you're moving on a daily basis, you're getting new blood flow, you're getting new cellular development, you're getting new activity to the body and development and support to the muscles. That is the one thing I would say to everybody, whether you're a partner, whether you're pregnant or not, find a way to move every day, because you are literally needing to use that body that's now supported body to, to bring life into this world. So if you're not moving, the stagnicity, all of that can really impact the overall health, not just the physical physiology of the body, but it can impact the mental, the organic, the full emotional state of the being. So move every day. Do it every day. Exercise every day. If it's 10 minutes, it's still better than no minutes. If it's an hour, again, it's not necessarily you're going for this, I've got to be a new triathlete by the end of my pregnancy. You're not going for that, but you need to move every day.
Beautiful. I love that. Alleah, thank you so much. So I just wanted to see if we have any questions. And if not, then I definitely want you to share your website. Just, tell us where we can find more information, because I don't want anyone to have to go on their long search like I did. But yeah, share your website. But does anyone have questions? Just want to touch base and see. So if not, yes, tell us, where can we learn more about you and all the beautiful work you're doing and everything that you're wanting to accomplish? Where can we go?
So right now I'm directing everybody to Yoga with Alleah, because the website alleaherica.com, it has not been finished yet. And the only reason why I was like, I have so many brands. There's the partnersworkshop.com, there's acucombos.com, themelaninbump.com, alleahericaphotography.com, alleaherica.photo. But if you go to Yoga with Alleah, Gmail, Instagram, or Facebook, and you message me there, that will definitely that's my platform where, if you need anything else, I can redirect you. So if you wanted to have your partner involved, you wanted childbirth education classes, the Partners Workshop, I can direct you there. If you want, to be a part of the Melanin Bump and you want to actually be a bump and you're in Toronto, I definitely do encourage, I'll send you information there. And so Yoga with Alleah on Gmail, Instagram, Facebook are like my most immediate ways people can get to me, and we can connect to all of the other offerings that I have.
Alleah, thank you. You have no idea. No, seriously, thank you so much for everything you're doing, for sharing time. It's just so beautiful. I'm really grateful, and I'm grateful that Vero did the plug. She was my plug.
I know, Vero actually participated. So I didn't mention this at all. Yoga with Alleah is the brain behind the live mat party, and I've been hosting daily yoga from March 30th till now. Just celebrated the 150th day on Thursday of having consecutive yoga and DJing, and we just partner up with DJs, and actually in a short half an hour we'll have a class over at Yoga with Alleah with a new DJ. And she participated in my second yogathon. So I hosted 12 yoga teachers, ongoing day of yoga. And she actually, did some yoga to Soka, and I was like, hey, you want to be a part of this? So as, as my sorority sister, I was like, I'm glad to have you on this movement. It was actually the first one. And so the first yogathon that we had, she was a part of it. And then I was like, hey, thank you, and then she let me know the other resources because she's asking if I was teaching. So I'm grateful for Vero, definitely, for her yoga practice and her yoga teachings as well.
Yeah, and you know what? It just highlights what we were saying about community and having a community that supports you, and not just your pregnancy, but in your life journey. And so I wish you the best. Keep me updated on that book. I'm really going to share that, and I'll share your information with my doula collective. And wishing all of you a beautiful Sunday and blessings. May your week be bountiful, may it be productive, and may you all find peace, right? Thanks for joining. Bye, Alleah. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.